Hey, BookTube. Welcome back to the History Shelf. As ever, I'm your host, Peg. This is my Nonfiction November TBR slash recently read video. I know it's the 8th day of November here. So I'm a little bit late in getting this video up, but I wanted to show you two of the books that I want to tackle this month. It will take me into December, but I'm also currently reading some really interesting nonfiction history that you've probably already seen before. But and then I have something I recently read that I wanted to show you. So this is just kind of just a little update. But I have two new books here that I want to highlight, which I'm featuring. This is my featured selection for Nonfiction November on BookTube, and this is from the good folks at Caliber Books, which is an imprint, I believe, of, I'll find it here. But if you are a fan of military history, yes, Penguin Random House, thank you. Or Dutton Caliber. Anyway, if you're a fan of World War II, and that's kind of what I decided to focus on for Nonfiction November, in addition to my buddy reads, which are biographies, historical biographies. But I decided World War II, Pacific Theater, and I've been wanting to check out this writer's work, and he has a brand new book coming out. But let me start with the first book. I believe it's going to be a trilogy. So my selection for Nonfiction November is John C. McManus's Fire and Fortitude, the U.S. Army in the Pacific War, 1941 to 1943. You've seen this a lot on other BookTube channels with folks like David Murphy. I don't know if Bill Ruttenberg has this book or not, but I know that Steve might have mentioned it when he was doing a mail haul one day. But you can see it's in paperback now. But I wanted to read this in preparation for John C. McManus's new book that comes out. It is already out, but I have it in hardcover. I'd like to thank Penguin Random House for that. This is Island Infernos, the U.S. Army's Pacific War Odyssey, 1944. And so this is a nice big chunkster of a book. But let me go ahead and read to you the description of Fire and Fortitude. Let's see here. The Pacific War has long been seen as a Navy and Marine Corps triumph, yet the majority of fighting and dying in the war against Japan was done by unsung Army soldiers. In this masterful tour de force spanning America's first 2 years of fighting, John C. McManus reveals a U.S. Army adjusting to the realities of global combat. From Pearl Harbor, a rude awakening for a military woefully unprepared for war, to Makin, a sliver of coral reef, where the Army was tested against the increasingly desperate Japanese, readers are confronted with the dizzying immensity of the Pacific, the isolation, and the brutal conditions. One of our finest historians of World War II, McManus brilliantly profiles the uncelebrated Army grunts who endured stifling temperatures, apocalyptic tropical storms, rampant malaria and other diseases, as well as a fanatical enemy bent on total destruction. In these 2 years of punishing combat, the Army transformed, at times unsteadily, from an undertrained garrison force into an unstoppable juggernaut, and America evolved from an inward-looking nation into a global superpower. Oh, okay. Sorry. It's not a trilogy. These are the 2 volumes. Okay. It says here, this is an essential, ambitious book, the first of 2 volumes, a compellingly written and boldly revisionist account of a war that reshaped the American military and the world and continues to resonate today. Okay, so these are the 2 books, what do you call it, a duology or something, that McManus has put out. So I wanted to review Island Infernos, but obviously I needed to back up and start with Fire and Fortitude. So I was happy to get a copy of the first book, which I'm going to start this month. And of course, I will check in, give periodic updates on this channel. But if you have read the book, let me know what you thought. If you're excited for the new release, which is just out now, I'll read a synopsis of it here. But yeah, I really wanted to dig into the Pacific War theater, especially from the aspect of the Army. Every branch of service had a different role to play, different experiences, different challenges, difficulties, triumphs. So I wanted to read about the Army Grunt. And I think it was the Pacific, that HBO, was it HBO? Yeah, that HBO miniseries, The Pacific. I remember watching that, and it was just really riveted by some of the scenes, especially like Guadalcanal, stuff like that. So I decided there have been recent books written on the Pacific War theater, some from the naval aspect, like Ian Toll's trilogy that's going on right now. And there was another one. There is a book I still want to read called Implacable Foes, which really goes deep into the psychology of the kind of the almost like the hatred, the racism that was involved, and on both sides between American soldiers and Japanese soldiers in the Pacific Theater. It was quite ugly. But I really have been intrigued by what I've heard about these two books, and so I'm going to go right from Fire and Fortitude and just keep going on into Island Infernos. And of course, I'll be reporting back on my reading updates, as I do frequently on this channel. So let me go ahead and read you a description of Island Infernos. It says here, in Fire and Fortitude, winner of the Gilder Lehrman Prize for Military History, John C. McManus presented a riveting account of the U.S. Army's fledgling fight in the Pacific following Pearl Harbor. Now, in Island Infernos, he explores the Army's dogged pursuit of Japanese forces, island by island, throughout 1944, a year that would bring America ever closer to victory or defeat. After some 2 years at war, the Army in the Pacific held ground across nearly a third of the globe, from Alaska's Aleutians to Burma and New Guinea. The challenges ahead were enormous, supplying a vast number of troops over thousands of miles of ocean, surviving in jungles ripe with dysentery, malaria, and other tropical diseases, fighting an enemy prone to ever more desperate and dangerous assaults. Yet the Army had proven it could fight. Now it had to prove it could win a war. Brilliantly researched and written, Island Infernos moves seamlessly from the highest generals to the lowest foot soldiers and in between, capturing the true essence of this horrible conflict. A sprawling yet page-turning narrative, the story spans the battles for Saipan and Guam, the appalling carnage of Peleliu, General MacArthur's dramatic return to the Philippines, and the grinding jungle combat to capture the island of Leyte. This masterful history... Okay, getting confused again. Check out what he says next here. This masterful history is the second volume of John C. McManus's trilogy on the U.S. Army in the Pacific War, proving McManus to be one of our finest historians of World War II. Well, maybe something happened in between the the writing of the book jacket copy of Fire and Fortitude, because the paperback edition says the first of 2 volumes. Not 3, 2. But this book promises it's a trilogy. Hey, I hope it's a trilogy. I love reading about this aspect of World War II. A lot of times the Pacific gets overlooked. Most of the attention goes to D-Day in Europe, the fighting against Germany. But this, I think, is really where, it was essential. I mean, you still had to defeat Japan, right? That's why you have VE Day and then VJ Day. So, okay, so possibly the second in a trilogy, or possibly the concluding volume. I mean, there was still probably more happening after 1944. Obviously, the war didn't end until the dropping of the atomic bombs, or shortly thereafter. Anyway, so we got a big read ahead of. This is over 500 pages. But I thought this was a worthy selection for Nonfiction November on Book 2. Yeah, both books are well over 500 pages, but this is a nice hard or softcover copy. If you get a chance, pick it up, and then keep your eyes open for Island Infernos. So those are my selections. They will carry on into December and should have some extra time around the holidays to really get in some extra reading. in addition to my normal book review work for other outlets, but I also review books here, so I'll be happy to report back. So again, I'll just mention the other books I'm reading in November that are nonfiction. History, primarily. Still doing a buddy read of Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom by David W. Blight. We are enjoying this immensely. I am reading this along with Lukash at A Cruel Reader's Thesis, Bill Ruttenberg, and his channel is Bill Ruttenberg, but we all know it as the Ruttenberg Library. And Patrice Jones, who is our good friend on Voxer, and she is a commenter, and just she buddy reads with so many people, and we're just having a great time together, sharing our thoughts. We're definitely going to get through. We've been taking our time with it because we've all been reading several different things at once. But we're about 13 chapters in, and learning a lot about Frederick Douglass. We're getting to the part where he's made a break with William Lloyd Garrison, which I wasn't even aware of, like how. And William Lloyd Garrison published The Liberator, which was a prominent anti-slavery newspaper. But they had a certain set of like dogmatic beliefs that if you didn't believe in them, if you didn't toe the party line, then you were kind of like shunned. And, Douglass was the type of man that, wanted to go his own way and partner up with different, not agencies, but different groups that might have a different approach to things, either from a spiritual or religious aspect or a political standpoint. But I didn't realize William Lloyd Garrison was going to be so, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of petty. You just sense a lot of condescension, even from the abolitionists, that they still were uncomfortable with a black man or black person just standing up on their own 2 feet and speaking for themselves and making their own decisions. So obviously there's still some latent inner belief in inferiority among blacks, or that the racism it just infiltrated all levels, really. So yeah, kind of disappointed in William Lloyd Garrison, but still chugging through. We're getting to a point where we still haven't even gotten close to the Civil War yet. It's still like 1852 where we're reading. So really enjoying this. And then the other book I'm reading for nonfiction November currently is another buddy read with Bill Ruttenberg and John David, who is another booktuber. And if I remember, I will link all their channels below. So if you do not know their channels and you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Because everyone is so just smart, savvy, funny, and always picking out good books to read and review on their channels. So we're reading Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power by John Meacham. And wow, I can't say enough about John Meacham. He is not only a great historian, with his use of sources. He borrows liberally from, Jefferson's letters, diaries, his own words. But John Meacham really knows how to pen a a phrase that sticks with you. I'm trying to recall, there was something he wrote that was really great. But anyway, he's a great writer. I mean, you just read through this, the pages fly by. So we're at the point in Jefferson's life, we're about right there. The goal is to finish by end of November, and then we're going to film a Zoom discussion with myself, Bill, and John. So keep an eye out for that. As the holidays roll around and you're kind of bored and there's nothing on TV, you're tired of football, maybe you can watch a Zoom discussion with the three of us talking about what we pulled from this book. But we're at the part where Jefferson has gone to Paris to, build foreign alliances and to help, to help build a relationship with France. We're coming to a pretty critical part here. It's when France is about to descend into revolution. So I'm on like chapter 22 right now. Yeah, it's a fascinating book in that I didn't really realize until I started reading this book. And I think things changed during the Revolution. People have noticed a marked difference in Jefferson's outlook as far as, you know, I've always thought of him as like a very fierce Republican and states' rights and all this kind of stuff. I thought he was like that throughout his life, but he really wasn't. I think the French Revolution, it kind of got to him a little bit, and he became more radical in that sense. But in the beginning, he really realized that the Confederacy, not the Southern Confederacy, I'm talking about the initial articles, right? When the country came together, it was the why am I blanking on that term? I know I'm just blanking. I hate when that happens. Before the Constitution, there was the Confederate Articles or something like whatever. You know what I'm talking about. But he was a critic of that, saying we need a stronger national federal presence to be. Otherwise, these states will just go after each other. And he was very prescient in predicting that a civil war, in essence. So that was interesting. I mean, I am learning, that he actually held some of the more federalistic views early on. But he's going to undergo a change here, which I'm just getting to now with the French Revolution. So, two books that are TBR, two that I'm currently reading, and then I just finished one. This is a book I'll be reviewing. It hasn't come out yet, but it will be coming out on December 7th. I'm writing a review right now of it, actually, for Shelf Awareness. And any of you like true crime fans or fans of Mindhunters, that TV show that they had on Netflix for a little while there, anyone interested in just the aspect of criminal profiling will really enjoy this one. I was reading this on ebook, an advanced e-galley. This was A Killer by Design. Murderers, Mindhunters, and My Quest to Decipher the Criminal Mind by Anne Burgess and Stephen Constantine. So Anne Burgess was a forensic nurse and psychologist an educator who her early work in supporting and helping survivors of sexual trauma like rape, and just really some horrible stuff. She did some study into the mind of the criminal, and she was noticed by some of the lead FBI agents, and she was brought into their fold along with John Douglas. I think there's a Wrestler, was his last name, Wrestler. But she has never told her story. The other guys got their books. I think John Douglas wrote a killer across the killer across the table, which I haven't read, and I'm tempted to because I've read this, but you know what? This was tough reading. I am not going to lie to you. This it was brutal. She has worked on a lot of cases and profiled a lot of heinous, vile things and people that have done some just, you can't even imagine. It just goes beyond the imagination. So there were times when I was reading like, oh no, I really wish I hadn't been assigned this book, because now that is in my mind, and it's just like, oy. But at the same time, the science and the psychology is fascinating, and it's very needed. And it's criminal profiling, psychological profiling has led to the capture of a lot of these individuals where nothing else was working. So it's necessary and vital. But I mean, you got to have a strong mind and a strong stomach to or a way to compartmentalize, because a lot of the stuff is really hard to take. But anyway, so I finished that one just the other night, and I think I'll leave it here for right now, because I have more books coming up that I need to start this month that are also nonfiction, but I think I'll group those into another video to talk about books that are upcoming that you might want to keep on your radar. They are books that I have been commissioned to review, and I have advanced copies of. So I might save those just to alert you to new history titles on the horizon, new nonfiction in general. So, yeah, so I think I'll do that. But for right now, let's call it good with my selections of Fire and Fortitude, of a possible, maybe a trilogy. We're not really sure. It's either a 1 or a 2 volume, or it's going to be a 3 volume. But we've got Fire and Fortitude and Island Infernos. So I'm really excited for that. Okay, BookTube, well, let me know what you think and of these selections. And again, I have more nonfiction coming up. You know, at the history shelf, that's primarily what I read. I do fiction as well, and I do fiction reviews. But as you can see behind me, that's all nonfiction. That's all history. As you can see, my my magazine selection, my subscriptions, all history. Yeah, and nonfiction and like current events and journals and such. Okay, well, there's no reason why I have to force this to be any longer than it is. I guess I'm so used to having long videos that it seems like, what are they going to do with a 21-minute video? They're probably going to applaud. I don't know. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Keep your eyes open for another video really soon. I'm going to try to, increase the frequency of these, as I have piles of books, new arrivals coming in all the time. And until next time, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon, BookTube. Bye-bye.